Hi, everyone. I'm Daniel, and welcome to another episode on Wild Love Story. Today, I'm going to share something with you, something that shook me to my core and left me questioning everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and marriage. It's the kind of story that, when you hear it, you won't be able to stop thinking about it for days. Before we get into it, though, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to turn on your notifications. Trust me, you won't want to miss the rest of this story. It's something I never thought I'd have to tell, but here I am, sharing it with all of you. And as we get into it, I want to know what you think. Seriously, I'll be reading every comment, so let me know if I made the right choices along the way. Lauren and I, we had it all. I thought we had it all. We met a few years back, at work, actually. At first, it was just friendly. But over time, things clicked. The chemistry between us was undeniable. We talked about the future, about what we wanted. We both wanted the same things: a stable life, kids, a house with a backyard, and all the things that come with a happy marriage. I never questioned it. I thought I knew her. We had built something real. But then, one day, everything changed. Lauren told me something that, well, it made me question everything. I wasn't ready for what she had to say. In fact, I didn't even believe it at first. It was one evening after dinner, maybe a week or so ago. We were sitting on the couch, and she just came out with it. Lauren turned to me and, without any warning, dropped a bombshell. She said, "I need to tell you something." The way she said it, it wasn't just a casual conversation. It was different. I could see something in her eyes, something serious. And that's when she told me about Sam. Her twin sister. You see, I didn't even know Lauren had a twin sister. I didn't know Sam existed. All this time, Lauren had kept that a secret from me. But it wasn't just about Sam. What really shocked me was what she said next. Lauren told me that she and Sam had made an agreement long before we even met. An agreement that, well, it wasn't just about family planning. It was about raising a child. A child that Lauren would raise on her own. Lauren told me that years ago, before we even crossed paths, she and Sam had this plan. Sam would donate eggs, Lauren would carry the child, but here's the twist: she was going to raise it alone. No father figure involved. And I was never supposed to be a part of that decision. I was speechless. I sat there, just staring at her, trying to process what she was saying. I kept thinking, how could she keep something so big from me? It didn't make sense. It felt like I didn't even know my wife. How could she make a decision like that without me? How could she plan for something so major and never tell me? I tried to make sense of it all. I really did. She said it wasn't about not wanting me involved, it was about her own personal choice to raise a child without the complications of a partner. She said she wanted a child, but without all the pressure that comes with having to raise it with someone else. She told me she had always wanted to do it on her own. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just about me being blindsided. This was something that changed everything I thought I knew about her. I didn't know how to react. How do you react when someone you love, someone you've built a life with, has been hiding something like this from you for so long? And the worst part? It wasn't just the idea of her wanting to raise a child alone, it was the fact that she had kept it all from me. All those years we spent together, and I didn't even know she had this secret plan. And worse. I wasn't supposed to be involved in the life she'd already started planning with her sister. At that moment, I didn't know if I was supposed to feel angry, betrayed, or just confused. What was I supposed to do with this information? How could she keep something this important from me? I didn't say much after that. We just sat in silence, and I let the words sink in. Lauren seemed almost apologetic, but at the same time, there was something resolute in her eyes. This wasn't a mistake to her. This wasn't something she regretted. She had made her decision. And in that moment, everything changed. I didn't know where to go from here. But what I did know was that I couldn't just let this go. This wasn't something I could ignore, or forget. I had to make a choice. And that choice would change everything. So now, I'm here, telling you all of this. I want to know, what would you have done in my shoes? If your spouse dropped a bombshell like this on you, how would you react? I'll be reading every comment, so let me know what you think. The next few days after Lauren told me about Sam, I kept replaying the conversation over and over in my head. I kept asking myself, what just happened? How had I missed this? How had she kept this from me for so long? And that's when it hit me, Lauren wasn't just telling me about a plan they had made in the past. She was telling me about a decision that she had already made. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I'd spent years with Lauren, and now I was learning that I didn't know the full story. How could someone go through life like that? How could she have such a big part of her life and not let me in on it? I mean, how could I just move on after hearing something like that? So, I decided to press her for more details. I needed answers that, in a way, I wasn't sure I even wanted. I thought maybe if I understood the why, I could begin to make sense of it. But as I started asking more questions, the more the whole thing started to unravel. I sat down with Lauren that weekend. I remember it clearly. It was a Saturday morning, a beautiful day. The kind of day you should be spending outside, not locked in a conversation that could change everything. We sat down in the living room, and I asked her to explain everything. I needed to know how this whole thing started, why she made that decision, and why, for all these years, she kept it from me. She told me that when she was younger, before we met, she had always wanted to have a child. Not just any child, but a child on her own. She said she had spent a lot of her early adulthood focused on her career, but when she got to a point where she felt ready, she realized that she didn't want the complications of a relationship or marriage to hold her back from having a family. It wasn't about me, she said. It wasn't even about wanting a partner. She said it was always about her desire to be a mother. At first, I thought I understood. I mean, we all have our personal goals and dreams, right? But as she kept talking, I realized there was something more. This wasn't just about being a mother. It was about doing it on her own terms. I remember her telling me, I didn't want to be in a relationship where I felt obligated to raise a child with someone else. I wanted to do it my way. And when Sam agreed to help me, I thought it was the best option for me. Sam. I remember thinking, who the hell is Sam? I'd never met her. I didn't even know she existed. Lauren told me that Sam was more than just a twin sister. She was a partner in this plan, almost like a co-parent, but without any of the traditional responsibilities that come with being a parent. Sam had agreed to donate eggs, and Lauren would carry the child herself. But here's the kicker, I was never supposed to know. Lauren had made it clear to Sam from the start that this would be a solo effort. She was going to raise the child alone, no father involved. The more I listened, the more it hit me, Lauren had planned this. She hadn't just kept it from me for a few weeks, or a few months. She had planned for this to happen long before I came into the picture. I kept my composure, but I was seething inside. I mean, how could she do this? How could she make such a huge decision about the future of her family without telling me? We were married. This wasn't some casual relationship where you can just keep things from each other. No, this was serious. This was our life. But it felt like she had already decided that I wasn't going to be a part of that future. She told me she never meant to hurt me. In fact, she claimed that when we first met, she'd been open about her plans with Sam. She said that at the time, she never thought it would become a serious relationship. She said she thought she could keep it all separate. But then, as we grew closer, as we got married, she thought it would be best if she just kept it under wraps. I don't know what was worse, the fact that she kept it from me, or the fact that she didn't trust me enough to share her true intentions. I mean, we'd talked about having kids. We'd talked about our future together. But this whole time, she had been planning something completely different. And she never thought to include me in it. At this point, I wasn't sure what I was feeling. Was I angry? Was I hurt? I didn't know. But the one thing I did know was that the more Lauren explained, the more I felt like I was losing control of the situation. I felt like I was losing control of everything. I asked her, "Why didn't you tell me? Why keep something this big a secret?" And that's when she finally admitted something that I hadn't expected. She told me she was afraid that I would react exactly the way I was reacting now. She was afraid I would get upset, that I would feel betrayed. But more than that, she said she was afraid that I wouldn't accept her decision. That I wouldn't accept the fact that she had planned to do it without me. That's when it hit me. She wasn't just hiding something from me, she was protecting herself from the possibility that I wouldn't be okay with her choices. But that only made things worse. Because now, it wasn't just a matter of a hidden plan. It was about trust. It was about us. About our relationship. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to move forward. But here's the kicker, this wasn't the end of it. The more I uncovered, the more I started to realize that things weren't as simple as Lauren had made them out to be. She had an agreement with Sam, sure. But there was more to the story. There was more to their plan. And if I thought things were complicated before, I was about to find out just how deep the rabbit hole really went. I needed space to think. I needed time to figure out where my head was at. But I also needed answers. The next few days felt like a blur. Lauren kept reaching out, trying to apologize, trying to explain. But the more I heard, the more I started to wonder, was this something that could be fixed? Could I ever get past this? And the truth is, I didn't know. I didn't know what the right choice was anymore. I didn't know if I could move forward with her after everything she'd told me. And that's when things got even more complicated. Lauren and I, well, we weren't the only ones involved in this. No. Sam was still part of the picture, and I had no idea just how involved she was about to become in our lives. But that's a whole different story. A story I'm still trying to figure out. I had no idea what I was getting myself into when I first started asking questions. I thought it was going to be simple, a misunderstanding, a rough patch we could work through. But as the days passed, I began to realize something. This wasn't a simple mistake or miscommunication. This wasn't something that could be fixed with a few conversations. No, this was much bigger than that. This was a fundamental difference in how we saw the world, how we saw our life together. I tried to keep it together, I really did. But the more Lauren tried to explain herself, the more I felt like we were worlds apart. And, I'll be honest with you, there were times when I thought we'd never be able to come back from this. The trust had been broken, and once trust is broken, it's never really the same, is it? So, I did what any person in my situation would do. I started pulling back. I needed space. I needed time to think, and more than that, I needed to figure out if I could live with the person who had kept this massive secret from me. I couldn't escape the feeling that something wasn't right. I had this nagging feeling that there were things Lauren still wasn't telling me. The more I asked, the more she pulled back. It was like she was slowly shutting down, closing off, and every time she did, it only made me more paranoid. Why was she so guarded? Why wasn't she being more open about this? So, after a few days of silence, I decided to dig deeper. I reached out to Sam, Lauren's sister, the woman who had been part of this plan from the start. I figured if Lauren wasn't going to give me the full story, maybe Sam would. I didn't know what I expected. I thought maybe Sam would be different, maybe she'd be more open, more willing to explain things from her perspective. But the conversation I had with her was, well, it was nothing like I thought it would be. When I called Sam, it was awkward from the start. I didn't know how to frame the conversation. I didn't know if I was supposed to be angry, hurt, or just curious. But I asked her flat out, "Why didn't you tell me about this? Why did Lauren feel like she had to hide it from me?" Sam's response was not what I was expecting. She said, "It was never about you, Daniel. You weren't part of the plan." And then she added, "Look, this was something Lauren and I agreed on. It's not personal. It's just the way it was." Hearing that from Sam was like a punch to the gut. She wasn't sorry. There was no apology, no regret. It felt like everything I'd been a part of, everything I thought I understood about my life with Lauren, was nothing more than a footnote in their grand plan. It was like I had been an afterthought in the most important decision of our lives. I didn't know how to take that. Sam's coldness only made everything worse. I had imagined a scenario where she would help me understand, where she'd help me find clarity. But all she did was push me further away from the truth. It was like I was chasing shadows, getting pieces of a puzzle that didn't even seem to fit. And then, I confronted Lauren again. This time, I wasn't holding anything back. I told her everything I had learned from Sam, the way she had acted like it was no big deal, the way they had planned this behind my back, the way it all felt so wrong. Lauren got defensive. She told me I was overreacting. She said I was making it more complicated than it needed to be. But I could see it in her eyes, there was guilt there, too. The same guilt that had been creeping into her voice every time we talked about this. She knew I was right. She knew she had kept too much from me, and no matter how much she tried to defend herself, I couldn't shake the feeling that this whole thing was a betrayal. And that's when the argument started. At first, they were small, little things we could brush off. But then, they escalated. Every time we tried to talk, the conversation would end in anger, frustration, or silence. We weren't communicating anymore. We were just fighting. And I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know how to get us back to where we were. I started wondering if maybe it was all my fault. Maybe I hadn't listened enough. Maybe I had been so focused on my own version of what our life should be that I'd missed the signs. Maybe I had been too naive to see that Lauren had been struggling with something deeper for a long time. But then I'd remember what she had said about raising a child alone, about wanting to do it on her own terms, without the complications of a relationship. And I'd feel angry again. I'd feel betrayed all over again. I kept asking myself, how could she think she could make such a huge decision without me? And every time I asked myself that question, the answer became clearer: she had never really seen me as an equal partner in this. As the weeks went by, the distance between us grew. It wasn't just emotional anymore. It was physical, too. I started sleeping on the couch. I stopped talking to Lauren about anything serious. And the thing was, she didn't seem to mind. She didn't seem to care that we were drifting apart. And that's when I realized something that terrified me. Lauren didn't just want to raise a child alone, she wanted to live her life alone. I had been part of her life, but I had never been the center of it. She was willing to make all these decisions, massive decisions that would impact both of our lives, without considering me at all. And I didn't know if I could live with that. I thought back to everything we had, our wedding, our house, our plans for the future. It all seemed like a distant memory. I started wondering if any of it had been real. If she had ever seen me as someone she could depend on. Or if I had just been a chapter in her story, a chapter she was ready to close. And that's when the weight of it all really hit me. I wasn't just losing trust in her, I was losing trust in everything we had built. Everything that I thought we had. The situation was becoming more and more clear. The longer this dragged on, the harder it was to ignore. But I knew one thing for sure: something had to change. Either we'd find a way to work through this, or I would have to walk away. The stakes were too high now. The emotions too raw. And that was the moment I started questioning my future. Because, truthfully, I didn't know if I could keep fighting for something that felt so broken. I wish I could say I had the answers right then, but I didn't. What I had was uncertainty, lots of it. And with each day that passed, I found myself closer to a decision I never imagined I'd have to make. The truth was, I was stuck. I kept thinking about all the years we'd been together, everything we had shared. The good times, the bad times, the moments that made me believe we were building a future together. But now, it felt like I was watching it all fall apart. And I didn't know if there was any way to put the pieces back together. I wanted to believe that it was just a misunderstanding, that everything could be fixed if we just talked it out. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't something that could be fixed with a conversation. This was something deeper, something that went beyond the surface level. I felt like I had been blindsided by someone I trusted. The woman I loved had kept something so monumental from me, and no matter how much she apologized, no matter how much she tried to explain, I couldn't shake the feeling that I would never be able to trust her the same way again. I couldn't even sleep. Every night, I'd lie in bed staring at the ceiling, running everything through my head again and again. The anger was there, sure, but it wasn't just anger anymore. There was something else too, something much heavier. Regret. Regret for the way things had turned out. Regret for not seeing the warning signs earlier. Regret for ignoring the little things that, in hindsight, now felt like major red flags. I remember one night, after we had fought for what felt like the 100th time, I walked out into the backyard. It was quiet, just the sound of the night air and the occasional rustle of leaves in the trees. And I stood there, thinking. Thinking about everything Lauren had told me, everything she had kept from me. And I couldn't stop asking myself the same question: how could she do this? How could she make such a huge decision without me? And why didn't I see it coming? I thought back to when we first met. Back then, everything had seemed so perfect. She was everything I had ever wanted, and I thought I was everything she wanted too. We talked about the future all the time. We dreamed together, planned together, built a life together. But now, it felt like I didn't even know her. It felt like I was standing in front of a stranger, someone who had never really trusted me with her true self. And that's when the weight of it really hit me. If she was willing to keep something like this from me, what else had she been hiding? What other parts of our life had she been keeping in the dark? The doubt started to creep in, and the more I thought about it, the more uncertain I became about the future. It felt like the foundation of our entire relationship was cracking beneath me, and I was powerless to stop it. And then, there was the child. It wasn't just the decision to raise a child on her own that hurt. It was the fact that I was excluded from that decision. I kept thinking about what it would be like to raise a child with someone who had already made up their mind about everything, who had already chosen how it was going to be. What did that mean for me? What did that mean for us as a family? The thought of Lauren raising a child with Sam, without me, felt like a betrayal. I couldn't help but picture it. I couldn't stop imagining what it would be like to see them together, raising this child as if I never existed in the picture. I mean, how could I be okay with that? How could I just accept that I wasn't part of their plan, that I was nothing more than a placeholder in a story that wasn't mine? But even then, even with all the questions swirling around in my head, the regret was overwhelming. I had spent so much time questioning what had gone wrong that I had stopped questioning myself. I had stopped asking what I could have done differently. Maybe I should have seen the signs. Maybe I should have been more aware of the distance between us in the months leading up to this. The more I thought about it, the more I started to wonder, was this my fault? Had I been too focused on my own life, my own career, my own plans, that I had failed to see the cracks forming in our relationship? Maybe I hadn't been the partner she needed. Maybe I had been too busy to notice that she was already planning a life without me. The truth is, I didn't have the answers. Not then, not now. I just kept thinking about the life we had shared, the love, the laughter, the memories we built, and wondering where it all went wrong. And I couldn't help but wonder if I had done something to deserve this. Had I somehow pushed her away without even realizing it? Or had I been blind to the fact that she had already checked out of our marriage long before she ever told me about her plans with Sam? I couldn't even bring myself to look at her the same way anymore. Every time I saw Lauren, I saw the woman who had kept something so important from me. I saw the person who had made a choice that affected both of us, and I wasn't even consulted. It wasn't just the baby. It wasn't just about raising a child. It was about the fact that I had been left out of something that was supposed to be ours. I wanted to ask her how she could live with herself, how she could look me in the eyes and pretend everything was okay when she had already made the decision to shut me out of our future. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because even though I was angry, even though I felt betrayed, I still loved her. I didn't know how to let go. I spent hours thinking about what to do next. Part of me wanted to fight for us, to fight for the life we had built. But another part of me, the part that was consumed by doubt and disappointment, felt like it was already too late. The walls were up. The trust was gone. I started thinking about walking away. But could I really do that? Could I just walk away from everything we had? From our home? From the life we had dreamed about? The regret was eating at me, pulling me in two different directions. One part of me wanted to fight, to try and repair what was broken. But the other part, the one that had been hurt so deeply, wanted to run, wanted to escape the pain before it destroyed me completely. I don't know how long I can keep living like this. The regrets are stacking up, and every time I think about the future, I feel like I'm drowning in uncertainty. I'm stuck in a place where I don't know if I can keep going, and I don't know if I even want to anymore. Maybe I was too late. Maybe I should have seen it all coming. Or maybe this was always meant to happen. I'll admit it. I was angry. So angry. I felt like everything I had worked for, everything I thought I had, was slipping through my fingers. I had tried to hold on, to be the man I thought Lauren needed, to salvage our relationship. But with every day that passed, it felt like I was just playing catch-up, like I was always one step behind. It wasn't just a betrayal anymore, it was a constant reminder that she had already made her decision, and I was the one left in the wreckage. And then, the thought crossed my mind. A thought I never would have entertained before. But after everything that had happened, after everything I had learned, it started to feel like the only way out. Revenge. I know, it sounds petty. Maybe even cruel. But when you've been lied to, betrayed in the worst possible way, you start thinking differently. You stop seeing things as black and white. You start wondering, what if I just flipped the script? What if I made Lauren feel the same way I felt, completely powerless and betrayed? At first, I didn't want to believe I could do it. But the anger was consuming me. Every time I looked at her, I couldn't stop thinking about what she had done. And every time I thought about what had been stolen from me, my future, my family, my trust, it felt like the only thing left was to make her understand, to make her feel the same pain I was going through. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. Something I regret, but also something that, in that moment, felt like the only option. I started planning my revenge. It wasn't big. It wasn't flashy. It didn't involve some grand scheme. No, it was far more subtle. But it was effective. First, I made sure to pull back completely. I stopped giving her the attention she was used to. I stopped being the person she could lean on. I stopped caring about the little things that used to matter so much. I let her see that I wasn't the same person I had been. That hurt her, I could see it in her eyes. Every time I ignored her, every time I pulled away, it chipped at her. And deep down, I knew it was eating her up inside. But that wasn't enough. No. The real revenge came when I began to change the way I interacted with other people, specifically, people who were important to her. People like Sam. I started getting closer to Sam in ways I never had before. It started as small things, a casual conversation here and there, a friendly message now and then. But I didn't stop there. I subtly began to plant seeds. I started talking to her more often, hanging out with her more. It wasn't anything overt. No, it was all subtle. I wasn't trying to make it obvious, but it was enough. Enough to make Lauren feel uncomfortable, to make her question things. And I'll be honest with you, there were moments when I felt sick to my stomach. I didn't like what I was doing, but I couldn't stop myself. I was angry. And every time Lauren gave me that sad look, every time she begged me to talk, to fix things, it only made me more determined to keep going. To make her feel what I felt. To make her realize that she had hurt me in a way that couldn't be easily undone. As I pushed forward, I noticed something strange. I wasn't just hurting Lauren anymore. I wasn't just getting back at her for what she had done. I was beginning to lose myself in it. I was becoming someone I didn't recognize. Someone who was willing to sacrifice my own happiness, my own integrity, just to make someone else pay. I wasn't just hurting her, I was hurting me too. But in the moment, it didn't matter. All that mattered was that I was getting my revenge. That I was regaining some of the control I had lost. But here's the thing about revenge, it never feels as satisfying as you think it will. At first, it felt good. Watching her struggle, seeing her get jealous, seeing her question everything. I thought I was winning. I thought I was finally making her feel the pain I had been carrying for so long. But then, the longer it went on, the more it started to gnaw at me. I started to feel empty. Like the satisfaction I had hoped for was never really going to come. I remember the night it all hit me. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, when I got a message from Sam. It was brief, just a simple line, "Lauren's been asking about you. She says she misses you. She wants to fix things." And something inside of me snapped. I couldn't do it anymore. I realized that what I was doing was only hurting everyone, even me. I had been so consumed by anger, by the need for revenge, that I had lost sight of what was really important. That night, I finally broke down. I cried. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I had spent so much time focused on getting back at Lauren, on making her feel the same hurt I felt, that I had completely lost myself in the process. And in the end, it didn't bring me any peace. It didn't bring me any satisfaction. All it did was make everything worse. I looked back at the damage I had caused, not just to Lauren, but to myself. I had allowed my anger to dictate everything, and now, I was stuck in a situation where I didn't even know who I was anymore. So, I had a choice. I could continue down this path, hurting myself, hurting her, letting my anger control everything. Or I could stop. I could apologize. I could admit that the revenge hadn't made me feel better. It hadn't healed the wounds. It hadn't given me the peace I was looking for. And that's when I realized the truth, revenge wasn't the answer. It wasn't the answer to my pain, and it wasn't the answer to what had happened between us. The only way forward was to face the truth, no matter how ugly it was, and figure out what I was going to do next. So here I am. And I'm wondering, what would you do? After everything I've been through, after everything Lauren and I have put each other through, would you walk away, or would you try to pick up the pieces? Would you even want to fix things? I want to know your thoughts, because, honestly, I don't know what I'll do next. I wish I could say I had it all figured out by now, but I don't. I don't have all the answers. I don't even know if there is an answer. All I know is that I can't keep living like this. After everything I put her through, after the decisions I made in my anger and hurt, I started to realize just how much damage I had done, not just to Lauren, but to myself. To us. The revenge I had thought would give me closure, the satisfaction of seeing her feel what I had felt, hadn't done any of that. It didn't make me feel better. If anything, it only deepened the chasm between us. The more I pulled away from Lauren, the more I hurt her, the more I felt lost. Like the person I had been, the person she had married, was slipping away from me, and I couldn't stop it. And every time I saw that look in her eyes, the hurt, the confusion, the doubt, I felt like a stranger was staring back at me. I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know who we were anymore. I wanted to hurt her, I'll admit it. I wanted her to know what it felt like to lose something important, to feel betrayed, just like I did. But when I saw the pain in her eyes, when I saw how much I was hurting her, when I realized that I was turning her into someone I didn't even recognize, I started to wonder if it was all worth it. There was one night, not long after I'd started pulling away and making things difficult, that I saw Lauren sitting at the kitchen table, her head in her hands. I could hear the muffled sobs, even from the other room. That was the moment it hit me. I wasn't just punishing her, I was punishing myself too. I had taken everything we had, everything we built, and I had turned it into something ugly. I had let my anger dictate my actions, and now I was standing in front of the ruins, wondering how the hell I was going to rebuild. I couldn't even bring myself to confront her. I didn't know what to say. What could I say? I had crossed a line, and I had no idea if there was a way back. No matter how much I apologized, no matter how many times I promised things would be different, I knew, deep down, that I had shattered something important. And what if it was too late to fix it? What if the damage was irreparable? The truth is, I was afraid. I was afraid that the person I had become, this person who sought revenge, who pushed away the one person I loved more than anything, was someone I couldn't come back from. The longer I let it go on, the more I realized that I was becoming someone I didn't recognize. Someone cold. Someone willing to destroy everything for the sake of proving a point. And what was I proving, anyway? That I could hurt her like she hurt me? That I could make her feel like I did? It didn't bring me peace. It didn't make me feel better. It just left me empty, more broken than I was before. I kept thinking back to the moments we shared, the laughter, the love, the small, everyday things that made us who we were. I thought about the way she looked at me when we were happy, the way her eyes lit up when we talked about our future, about kids, about building a life together. I thought about those promises we made to each other, and I realized. I couldn't fix this by being cruel. I couldn't fix this by continuing to punish her for something that wasn't just her fault. I had to stop. I had to face the truth. But stopping didn't mean it would go back to the way things were. It didn't mean everything would be okay again. Because even though I had stopped with the revenge, even though I had tried to pull back, I couldn't undo the hurt I had caused. The trust was gone. The damage was done. And as much as I wished I could go back to the way things were, I knew I couldn't. I knew that no matter what I did from that point on, I couldn't erase the way I had made her feel, the way I had pushed her to the edge. What if she didn't want me anymore? What if she had already checked out, just like I had done to her? Every day, I thought about what I could do to fix it. I thought about making grand gestures, about going to therapy, about trying to show her that I was still the man she married. But every time I looked at her, I saw the person who had been hurt by my actions. I saw the walls she had put up to protect herself. And it hurt. It hurt more than I ever thought possible. Because the truth is, I had been given a chance to rebuild, to fix what I had broken, and I wasted it. I let my anger, my need for revenge, cloud everything. And now, I didn't know if I could fix it. I didn't know if we could fix it. I kept asking myself, was it worth it? Was the pain, the suffering, the broken pieces of trust, really worth it? And every time I asked myself that question, I came to the same answer. No. No, it wasn't worth it. No amount of revenge, no amount of hurt could ever replace what we had lost. But maybe it wasn't too late. Maybe there was still a chance, maybe the future wasn't set in stone. But I had to act. I had to show her that I was ready to move beyond the revenge, beyond the pain. I had to prove to myself and to her that I was capable of change. That I could be the man she needed me to be, not the man I had become in my own anger. I don't know what will happen next. I don't know if we'll ever be the same. But I do know one thing: I've learned the hard way that revenge doesn't heal. It doesn't fix anything. And now, all I can do is hope that somehow, we'll find a way forward. Together, or apart. I don't know what the future holds, but I know that I can't keep living in the past. I've spent so much time trying to fix everything. Trying to patch things up, but all I've done is make it worse. I've tried to play the part of the victim, tried to make Lauren feel the same hurt I was carrying, but in the end, that only made everything fall apart even further. And now, I'm here, standing at the edge, trying to figure out what's left for me to hold on to. I can't keep asking myself, what if? I can't keep thinking about the things that happened or the things I could have done differently. Because, in the end, the past is gone. It's already been written. All I have now is the present, and the choices I make today will shape the tomorrow that's still waiting for me. I've thought long and hard about everything, about how we got here, about the mistakes I've made, and the things that have slipped through my fingers. But I can't ignore the truth anymore. I've been the one standing in my own way. I've let my anger, my pride, and my desire for revenge blind me to the only thing that really matters now, the future. So here it is. The final decision. The one that will decide whether we continue this journey together, or if it's time to face the truth that maybe we've already gone too far. Maybe we've changed too much. Maybe the damage is irreversible. I've spent too many sleepless nights wondering if I could just go back to how things were, if I could undo the hurt I've caused. But I've learned the hard way that you can't undo the past. You can only move forward, with or without the person you thought you'd be with forever. It's not about being right anymore. It's not about getting back at anyone or proving that I was justified in my anger. It's about this moment. Right now. And how we handle it. How I handle it. I need to ask myself, can I forgive her? Can I forgive myself? Can we both move past everything that's happened and find a way forward? Or is this where we part ways? I'm scared. I'm scared of making the wrong choice. Scared of letting her down. Scared of losing her forever. But I know that I can't stay paralyzed by fear. I can't keep living in this cycle of regret and self-doubt. If we're going to have any chance at all, I need to stop being the person who's stuck in the past. I need to stop holding on to all the things that went wrong and start focusing on what can still be right. But here's the thing, I can't make this decision alone. It's not just about me anymore. I can't be the one to carry all the weight of this relationship on my shoulders, because that's not fair to either of us. We need to make this decision together. We need to decide if we're both willing to rebuild what we've broken or if we've simply outgrown each other. I know it's not going to be easy. I know that it might take time, and it might take more pain before we can find any kind of healing. But I'm ready to make that decision, and I'm ready to move forward, whether it's together or apart. So, here it is. The decision I've been avoiding for so long. Do we walk away, each of us with the pain of the past, or do we take the risk of starting over, of finding a new way forward, together? Honestly, I don't know. But I've got to find out. And that's why I'm asking you. I need your thoughts. I need to hear what you think. Because I don't have all the answers. I never have. But maybe, just maybe, we can figure this out together. I'm done looking back. It's time to look ahead. So, this is the moment of truth. This is where the story can go either way. And I've finally realized, sometimes, the hardest decisions are the ones we have to make for ourselves. And no one can tell you what to do. You have to find your own way. And maybe, just maybe, I've found mine.